Good evening, all. I would like to welcome everybody to this panel discussion on meditation, myths and truths, decoding dhyan with Acharya Prashant ji. So, I would take this opportunity to introduce our very special guest and extraordinary person, Acharya Prashant ji. Acharya Prashant ji is a powerful voice of socio-spiritual awakening in today's world. He is an acclaimed Vedanta exegete and author of over 70 books, including the national bestseller Karma. An alumnus of IIT Delhi, IIM Ahmedabad, and a former civil services officer, he is an exponent of pure Vedantic wisdom, a vocal warrior against superstition and inner weaknesses, a promulgator of pure spiritual veganism, and an expounder of essential human freedom. With whole heart, I welcome Acharya ji. So now I just request Professor Neeraj Kumkarna, who is a faculty mentor of Yogastha IIT Bombay, to welcome Acharya ji with few words.
Good evening, all of you. It's great to be present at a Yogastha event. Actually, I have after such a long time, and I mean these times are times of uncertainty. A lot of the students they don't know what holds for them. Continuously, sometimes we have online classes. We had just resumed and we're getting back on track, and again we are going back into the kind of this uncertainty mode. So in these whenever there are fluctuations outside, frequent changes in rules, sudden changes in rules, lockdown, no lockdown, our mind also is kind of in sync with those. It also moves up and down, and sometimes this uncertainty becomes unbearable. So what is the key here is one of the keys that is here to get our lives back on track, irrespective of what is happening outside, is to get our mind on track. And this dhyana, which is going to be discussed in this program, is an important aspect, and that is where it comes in. So we are grateful to you, Acharya ji, and welcome to guide, and we look forward to an enlightening session from you. So by the way, I am Neeraj Kumbakarna. I am a faculty member here in the Mechanical Engineering Department, and I am currently functioning as the faculty mentor for the Yogastha Student Yoga Club. So very grateful to you, Acharya, for your eminent presence and offering to guide us. Thank you very much.
Namaskar, Acharya ji. I am Praveen. I am a PhD bioscience student, and my question is regarding brain and mind. So, is there a difference between mind and there are proofs or case studies that we carry some memories from our past lives? So, if that is true, then how and where our memories are stored?
No, we do not carry any memories from our personal past lives. The memories that our bodies, our cells, our DNA carry is the collective memory of entire humankind, the entire journey of evolution. So it's not as if the one who is speaking to me right now, the one who identifies with his name, his body, his face, his age, his place of birth, his parents, that person does not have any particular past life. You have an infinite number of past lives, and that's not a linear thing. That's like a tree. That's like a large number of waves coalescing together and giving rise to several other small waves. None of the newly formed resultant waves can claim any of the previous and disappeared waves to be their past lives. Everything is coming from everything else. Individuality that we believe in is a myth. It is because the ego likes to be identified with this particular body, with this particular birth, that it seeks to project in the backward direction this particular birth and the consciousness related with it. Do you see what is going on? We do not live integrated lives. We are not identified with everything. Nobody can practically be. We all have strong identifications with this body, with this face, with the memories that you carry currently in this brain. Because you are strongly identified with this, that's why you want to assume that this has had a particular personal history in the past. Now, surely you do have a history, but that history is not particularly personal to you. What's your good name, please?
I'm Praveen Kant, sir.
So, Praveen has had no past life in particular. There was nobody in the past, ever in the past, who died and took birth, rebirth as Praveen today. If you want to understand where you are coming from, then you have to understand that you are the resultant of millions of lives and deaths. Every single creature that has ever been on this planet has contributed to the one you are. So if you want to talk of your past lives, then your past lives are just too numerous, just too immeasurable. They are so immeasurable that they will not leave any scope for your particular individual ego to relish. The ego loves private property, no? We all want to say, this thing is mine. This thing is mine. Right? Whereas the thing with rebirth is that everything is yours. Equally, everything belongs to everybody else as well. So this is not just yours. This belongs to everybody. Similarly, there is nothing anywhere that is not yours. Everything belongs to everybody. Any person who ever lived is present in your being in some way or the other. Right? So that's where the brain is coming from. The brain is a product of a collective evolutionary journey. Then you ask why there are differences in people's brains, just as there are differences in people's colors and heights and genders. It's a random thing. A wave arises in the sea, and every wave is a little different from every other wave. Do you want to assign a particular reason as to why a particular wave is the way it is? It is just the way it is. You could call it randomness. Or if you want to assign reasons, we said the reasons are so numerous, you will fail to list them. I suppose the query has not been fully answered because you also wanted to touch upon brain and mind, brain in context of mind. So what is it about the mind that you want to know, please?
So I want to know, brain is something which is very physical.
Yes.
Within my body.
Yes.
And uh, it is said that mind is something which carries the thought,
Mind carries thoughts. Okay.
and it has impression of different experiences that we have.
Yes. Brain too has them. Yes.
So I am not able to understand actually what is the difference between the two. Are these two words are two different entities, different things?
No, you see, the mind is a concept. The brain is a fact. To begin with, this is the difference. The brain will exist irrespective of what you think about it, what you say about it. So the brain will exist irrespective of your station in life, the time of the day, the state of your consciousness, whether you are sleeping, whether you are agitated, whether you are comatose, whether you are fully attentive. The brain is, just as this mug is. There are times when it will be hot, there are times when it will be cold, when it will be empty, when it will be full, clean, unclean, so many things, but it is. That's the brain. The mind is a concept. The mind exists in itself, and the mind can come and go. The mind can be easily laid to rest and it can disappear. The brain won't disappear. Getting it? Brain, you could say, in the human body is the physical seat of consciousness, which is the mind. But the mind is pretty much a flexible and liquid, fluid entity. It exists as long as there are impulses, thoughts, feelings. It exists only in activity. Otherwise, it is not there. The brain just is, like a piece of bread. The mind is associated with I. Whatever is happening in the mind has I at its center. This I, at some point one learns, is a bit of a fiction. Therefore, the mind really exists only as long as you want to believe in it and as long as you see some benefit in having it exist. In fact, the mind exists in a way. It thinks its existence is beneficial to itself. That kind of flexibility the brain does not have. The brain cannot just suddenly change itself, though even the brain has a certain degree of elasticity and plasticity both, and there are changes possible to it in the long run. But the mind is very, very fluid. It seeks information, and then based on its need to protect itself, it takes new identities, new forms. A point may come where it realizes that there is no need for that kind of security, no need for identifications with this and that. And then the mind just becomes still. That still mind you can also call as no mind. The mind is still, the brain will keep functioning as per its biological nature, and the mind is just watching. The brain is working, the body is working, The world is in activity and the mind is a watcher. The mind no more needs activity. The mind no more needs movement or identification. So that's the difference between brain and mind.
Just to add on to this, it means that mind exists until there is I, there is ego with it.
Yeah. Yes. Mind is the very seat of consciousness. You cannot have anything mental going on in the usual sense without I being at its center. Even if you are thinking about some geopolitical event happening in Europe or West Asia, if you will investigate carefully, you will find that there is self-interest involved there. Your I is still present there, otherwise you wouldn't have been thinking about it. At least you would say, I am interested in knowing about it and hence I am thinking about it or seeking information about it. So the very movement of the mind is self-centered, centered on I, centered on the ego.
Namaskar, Acharya ji. I am Shreyash Bohre and currently I am pursuing Masters in Technology and Development at IIT Bombay. Final year student here. So my counter question is on the context of the statement that you say that mind is something which comes and goes. So there is a certain stimulus that creates or that leads to mind coming into action. Is it?
Yes, obviously. The mind is so very dependent on the surroundings and the stimuli.
And then there are thoughts because of which we are able to perceive the mind. Is it?
Yes, you cannot know the mind if it is not in action. Thought is the action of the mind.
So what is the state if we are devoid of any thought? And so what is your or mine identity in that state? And if one goes beyond saying that in order to get the state where mind is completely absent, so what would be the act of that person? I mean, how does one go to achieve that state?
You see, thought is both the lock and the key. Thought is just not the prison and its walls. Thought is also the way, the equipment you can get out of the prison. So it's a bit too early to talk of a thoughtless state. If you become thoughtless in your current state, your imprisonment within your dualistic prison will become permanent. So thought has to be used, at least initially, to understand what is going on. Because you see, who are we right now as we discuss all this? We are people who believe in our physical identities. We are people who live in a dualistic consciousness. I am talking to you, right? There are two. You are in front of a screen. There are so many others. All this is duality. And we believe in this. And we actually have no option but to believe in this. If we just say, oh, I don't believe in this, that would be hypocrisy. Because we do. We do. If I just go about saying, I am not, or aham brahmasmi, it would not only be untrue, but actually dishonest. So, because we live in this particular way, we have to use thought as a means to investigate what all this is about. Who are you? Who am I? What are these bondages? What is the world? What are temptations, desires, fears, all these things? Only then you come to a point where you can talk of dropping even the method that you needed for liberation, because now you are already liberated. The method for liberation is thought itself. It would be not very wise to drop your weapons before the war is won. It's only after you have won the war that you find that the weapon is needless. Thought is a very important faculty available to you, right? But when you dive straight away into top class spiritual literature, you find a lot of reference to thoughtlessness, nirvichar state. That is obviously the ultimate state. But you cannot just wish or dream your way to that state. Given who you are, and that is the fact of your existence, you have to work your way to that state. And if you have to work your way to that state, thought is useful. So I would advise, instead of asking what is a thoughtless state or how to drop thought, you have to first ask yourself, is your thought in the first place sharp enough? Exercise more thought, think deeply. And the think with deep and penetrating thought is that thought gets exhausted or fulfilled. And then you get a glimpse of what you can call as thoughtlessness. Thoughtlessness, therefore, is not the absence of thought as such. Thoughtlessness is the fulfillment of thought. Thoughtlessness is when thought is not needed anymore. You cannot randomly drop thought. People attempt to do that. If you just randomly drop thought, you just become unthoughtful, unthinking. And that's not a very nice thing to say about someone. That fellow behaves in unthinking ways. Right? Think and think rightly. Think so sharply that the need for thought is brought down to zero at a point. There is nothing left to think. I have come upon something that is beyond thought. Thought has been stunned. Thought has worked so hard, it now wants to go to sleep. Thought has fulfilled its purpose. Right thought is needed. That is classically called as Atma Vichar, or even just Vichar. If you go to Raman Maharshi, he will just say Vichar is needed. You begin by asking, what is all this and to whom is all this? What is this and to whom is this? And if it is to me, what do I get by having it existent to me? Why must it exist for me at all? Surely I have a stake somewhere in having it mean something to me, having it exist for me. And it's not easy to inquire this way. It requires a lot of attention. It requires hard work. It's a bit similar to solving a tough mathematical problem. In fact, tougher than that, because here the inquiry is inwards. And we are not accustomed to that. We have not had enough practice of that since our childhood. We know how to penetrate into things outside of us, but we have not been educated to look into our own minds and penetrate into our own intentions and desires and the entire inner structure. So thought is very much needed. Right? When thought has to sublimate, it will on its own. You don't have to plan for it. Be a sharp thinker, be an inward thinker. Whenever you look at something, always think of the thing's relation to yourself. Nothing can exist for you if you don't have a stake in it. This sounds unbelievable to begin with, but I invite you to investigate it.
So, Acharya ji, does stake in one way talk about attachment here?
Of course, attachment and dependency. And that's how the mind exists, in a false sense of duality. Mind is some kind of a half eye, seeking its counterpart, its missing half, in a world that it projects on its own. The mind is seeking its own missing half. It's just that it's seeking at the wrong place. It's seeking there, in this and that and that and that. And whatever the mind looks at, forms a relationship with, it obviously has a stake in. There would be attachment, there would be fear, there would be greed, all the usual tendencies of the mind.
Thank you, Acharya ji.
We have spoken about how brain is part of evolution, and at some point mind came into the picture where it starts associating itself with I. And we also told that consciousness is seat of mind, and mind's tool or the thing that comes through mind is thought. And we also told that mind uses thought to some extent to retain itself.
Yes.
Right, to strengthen itself, to secure itself, things like that, right? So and we are also telling that use the same thought to help mind to resolve itself as well.
Yeah.
Right? And if we do that sharply, we might come to a state where mind don't retain itself, right? But looks like we are kind of fighting with the mind, right? Like mind wants to retain itself, but we are kind of we are kind of conflicting with it to help itself not to retain.
The mind has an inner conflict. On the one hand, it wants to come to its end. On the other hand, it wants to exist to see its end. It wants to exist even in its end to enjoy the state after the end. That is just foolish. That is just unwise. So the mind has to be counseled. The sheer impossibility of fulfilling paradoxical conditions has to be counseled to the mind. That's where thought also comes in the picture. You use thought a lot. And what I called as fulfillment of the thought is nothing but a revelation of inadequacy of thought. Thought exists by promising that it can bring your inner loneliness and your sense of hollowness to an end. It says you have problems within, I can solve your problems. No, that promise is never deeply, fully tested by us. Because thought is making all these promises, the nice thing probably is to give thought a chance. All right, now that you're saying that you can solve my problems, proceed. Show me how you can solve my problems. And that's when you come to the limitations of thought. And after that, thought has nowhere to hide. It has to just raise its hands and surrender. And then that's a different way of being. A way of being in which you are not running after impossible promises. When you realize the fact of the body and the way it operates, and you look at it as you look sometimes without attachment at an animal, its ways, its maneuvers, its desires, it comes into existence, it dies. I was looking at this short video. It was a series of short videos actually. And all these videos involved leopards and lions and tigers chasing wild beasts and deers and pigs and zebras, buffaloes, and hunting them down. And the whole process was quite graphic. The recording was very vivid, and I read the comments there. Nobody seemed to mind that the deer's life has been lost. Why? Because you realize it's a thing in Prakriti. It happens. It happens. Yes, from where we look at it, it appears very gory, and you want to save the little animal being killed. Our sympathies are with the loser. But I found it noticeable that hardly any of the comments to those videos talked of pity or anger towards the predator. When you can look at your own life in the same way, that's when there is no need of self-defense or security. That's when one lives. That's when small petty concerns do not matter that much. I don't know whether I have been communicative enough, but I just tried.
Namaskar, Acharya.
Namaskar.
So, as you said earlier, that think up to the point when thoughts are going to be stopped or exhaust or their purpose going to fulfill. But when we do this in a meditative state, then this is the most hard part. Like thoughts are at that time thoughts are never-ending situation. So like how to?
No. Thoughts have already ended. Thoughts have already ended. They are just repeating themselves in a cycle. And that's when you should catch them. That's when you should know that your equipment is not serving you anymore. Thought is great as long as it's making some progress. But if the challenge is big and important enough, thought very soon succumbs. But thought by its nature is not very honest. It won't readily admit that it can't help you anymore. So what does it do? It starts running about in circles. You think of A, and that leads to a thought about B, and that leads to a thought about C, and that leads to again a thought about A, and then again B, and again C, and then again A. Have you experienced this? This kind of cyclical thinking? When this starts happening, then it should be possible for you to just dismiss the whole movement of thought and say, no, you are not helping me anymore. What do you do with a taxi driver that's taking you around in circles? Does it help you? Or when you write a computer program and some fault in coding has resulted in a cyclical movement. Line 20 says go to line 50, and line 50 in some way says go to line 10, and the program is stuck in an endless iteration there. What do? You don't allow it to continue, right? You say, sir, you're not serving any good purpose, so please stop. Have some honesty. You exist to serve me. I don't exist to bear and tolerate you. You are my equipment. You are a means to an end. You are not the end itself. But that's the dishonesty of thought. It tells you it will take you to a particular end. And very shrewdly, very deceptively, it becomes itself the end. It keeps telling you, come, ride over me, I'm taking you somewhere. As if the end is a place separate from thought, different from thought. But if you are sharp enough, you'll realize that thought very soon becomes its own purpose, its own end. It wants to endlessly continue. The I tendency that we have, on one hand, wants to come to an end, wants to sublimate, dissolve, become fulfilled, whatever you call it. On the other hand, it conspires against itself. In a superficial sense, it realizes that it must reach the destination and end. But somewhere it is so afraid or ignorant that it doesn't want to end. It wants to just endlessly continue. The process of counseling the ego tendency, or tricking it, or educating it, or working hard on it, is the process of spirituality. That's what you call as working upon yourself. When you work upon yourself, you are essentially addressing your own inner dishonesties. You are asking yourself, why do I need to believe in behave in self-defeating ways? Why do I need to believe in self-destructing concepts? Why do I need to be my own enemy? That's what is spiritual quest or inquiry or sadhana.